Tonight on Free Minds TV, France lifts a 12-year ban on the energy drink Red Bull. Downsize DC launches a new website with more interactive features for their members. The terror watch list in the United States has gone over 1 million names, and a whole lot more tonight on Free Minds TV.
And welcome to Free Minds TV, where we challenge you, the viewer, to think outside the box. As always, this is Toby.
And Nick.
All right, as you said, Nick, it looks like Americans, or anyone around the world, who wants to travel all around the globe, including France, can now go there and enjoy a tasty Red Bull. For the first time in, what, 12 years?
12 years, basically since the drink hit the market. France had banned it because it contained the substance taurine, which is a stimulant.
Sounds scary.
It sounds scary. It's a stimulant, and the effects, as far as I understand it, are pretty similar to caffeine. Now, there was a French legal version that had only caffeine in it, and the recipe was a little bit different. But now French consumers are going to be able to get the actual Red Bull that we consume in America and most other parts of the world.
Well, it's good to see that some parts of the world are at least moving in a little baby steps more freedom. I don't know how big of a deal this is. I guess it's good. Any step towards freedom, any ban on any prohibited items, I think is a good thing because, as we've gone over many times, prohibition is not going to stop any kind of use. I'm sure there were other ways people were getting these stimulant effects other than drinking Red Bull with taurine in it. They were probably just drinking more caffeine or some other product similar to taurine. So it's good to see that France is starting to see the light a little bit. Any news on why this happened?
Well, on the downside, they only really did this because the European Union told them they had to. Oh. Under European law, substance shouldn't be illegal in one European country unless they can prove that there are harmful effects or they have some evidence that there are harmful effects. And France didn't. It kept the product illegal simply because they claim they didn't know enough about the product and weren't able to determine whether it had negative health effects or not, despite the fact that the Health Commission there had 12 years to figure it out.
Well, that makes sense. If anything's new, you don't know anything about it, just ban it completely because chances are it's scary and bad and you don't want anything to do with anything that with a name like taurine.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing about it is, while it might not be good for you to drink a whole lot of these products. It's not good for you to drink a whole lot of coffee or any other caffeinated beverage.
Any
either.
stimulant.
Right.
And stimulants, they wear on the old ticker.
They do, and it's not always a good idea, especially when it's, in some cases, Red Bull, when it's mixed with alcohol, has resulted in serious health problems.
Don't you worry. Here in the United States, we're fighting that. We're trying to do away with any of these energy/beer drinks, such as Sparks, or there's a few different brand names. Not for the same reason, though. We're doing it because since kids like energy drinks, they're going to go buy that instead of buying a regular energy drink. So don't worry, we're fighting against those freedoms here in the United States, Nick.
Well,
no worries. we will do away with all freedom to drink beverages here as other countries start to relax their laws.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic. I have a feeling that people who like energy drinks and beer are just going to buy the two and mix them, or drink an energy drink and then drink a beer. The effects would be exactly the same. So cracking down on that, not exactly going to reduce the rate of teenagers consuming alcohol or energy drinks, I don't think. So, but you know, France, at least they've loosened this restriction so people in France can enjoy Red Bull, which once in a while I like it. I don't like to have that many stimulants all the time, so. But it's a drink I enjoy, and I don't know what the French recipe tasted like, although I have a feeling that it probably wasn't as good.
I'm more of a coffee guy personally, but anyways, hopefully I think there's too many politicians who enjoy their coffee. I think we'll have that one for a while. I think we can rest assured that coffee will stay on the market. Probably not mixed with alcohol because kids might want that or something.
Isn't that called Kahlua?
Oh yeah. We gotta do well. The liquor stores sell that. At least here in New Hampshire, the liquor stores have a vested interest in continuing Kahlua sales. All right. Well, so let's talk a little bit about what happens with prohibition. When you prohibit an item, do people really stop using it or trying it? Well, a new study, I know correlation doesn't equal causation, but it suggests in that direction. A new study has come out which tracked 16 different countries and their use of certain drugs. Marijuana was among these. Now, here in the United States, for over 70 years now, we've had a prohibition on marijuana, where there's some pretty harsh penalties. Most parts of the country, you can go to jail. There's people who have been locked up for single use of marijuana. They also get a criminal record for using marijuana. Has this curbed the use of marijuana? Well, a new study shows that 42% of Americans admit to have tried smoking pot, whereas in the Dutch, only 20%. Over double as many people here in America with tough laws, double the people have tried smoking marijuana, yet where it's relaxed marijuana laws, people are trying it less. What's this say about prohibition?
Right, and that holds true even for young people. I know if you look at the numbers for people who are young people in the Netherlands and young people in the United States, the penalties still apply even though you're underage. And you'll see that the Dutch usage rates are lower for teenagers too.
Yeah.
So there is an aspect of prohibition that can tend to drive people towards using a substance. And I believe we saw that during alcohol prohibition too, where alcohol rates dropped off slightly for the first year or two of prohibition, and then once
moonshiners picked up.
Once the distribution channels got out there, you saw more people drinking during prohibition than were beforehand. So it's counterintuitive.
So this isn't rocket science here. This isn't a huge surprise that where there's more laws against an item, more people are going to try it. Now, this study doesn't go into if these people are habitual users, but it does show 42 versus 20%. 42 where it's highly illegal, 20% where it's legal. I mean, what's the saying? And it goes on to other drugs. Apparently about 16% of Americans have tried cocaine, and that's much higher than other parts of the world. And it should be noted, I just found this interesting, in Asian countries, virtually no one smokes pot over in China and Japan, according to this study at least. So, interesting facts about prohibition. If you truly want to educate the public and have them not do a drug or a substance or an illicit behavior, well, try education rather than just locking people in jail for it, because you know what? People aren't really thinking about the punishment when they're getting away with it. The punishment isn't going to deter people away from experimentation.
Right, and clearly the argument that if you decriminalize the substance, usage rates are going to be very high doesn't hold true. Right. As we've seen in the Netherlands.
There might be a short spike for the first, when you first say, if here in America we just suddenly abolished all the laws, drug laws, yeah, there would probably be a short spike until the public got used to it, got used to the product being legal. Okay, now it's no big deal. I also like being sober, so I'm not going to go do that. If I wanted to go do that, the law, a silly little piece of paper, isn't going to stop me.
Right. Education is definitely the route to go, and people can make their own decisions, and people will still make bad decisions. Even
if it's the death penalty, people will be using drugs.
Right. I mean, the law obviously hasn't lowered usage rates in the U.S., and its addiction rates have been pretty much steady since before the war on drugs to the present. Addiction rates haven't been affected too much. So you have added violence and added overcrowding in the prisons, and you're not getting any results from it.
Yeah, now 1 in 100 Americans locked up. Land of the free, home of the brave. What can we do to put a stop to this, though, Nick? What's this week's Downsizer Dispatch? How can we contact Congress? Tell them to shove it.
Well, Downsize DC has revamped their website. So
good news.
Basically what they've done is they've added a number of features, because the number of downsizers, people on their subscriber list, has grown. And we've told people in the past about specific issues where they should use the Downsizer DC contact method for contacting representatives in Congress, and it's fairly effective. It's an automated form, and you can send out simply an automatic message to all your representatives in the House and the Congress simply by basically clicking a couple buttons. It takes less than a minute, and you can personalize the message if you want to. Well, we were running into problems where the Congress had started to put filters on their messages. Even though this isn't spam and it's not through an email system, the technology actually fills out the form on the congressman's website. They were trying to block them. Well, they've tweaked some things around. They have a new system now, and likely the congressmen aren't going to be able to block letters from their constituents, which is good news because these aren't robots. These are real people. You have to give your address and your name, things like that. So they're real constituents. If the congressmen don't want to hear from them, well, I think the constituents in downsized DC will find a way to get the message across.
That's some good news. You know, this isn't the first time that Downsized DC has had to do something about the government trying to shut down their little operation. Because, believe it or not, the government officials don't want to hear from you, especially if you're not happy with them. They don't want to hear that. So this isn't the first time that the government's tried to do something. Before they were trying to. There was something about campaign finance and stuff. There was a whole. A fight that they were battling, laws passed that they might not be able to keep up and running, but enough people signed up for the Downsizer Dispatch and contacted Congress, they couldn't ignore them all. So programs like this are still going, so this is another hurdle. I'm very glad to see the technology is making it through and freedom prevails, at least a little bit.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I mean, it's a step forward, and the good thing is that Downsized DC has grown. I think they started with something like 4,000 messages to Congress a month in their first couple months, and now they're up to, for June, this past June, 70,000 messages were sent, and they've got tens of thousands of new downsizers who are subscribing to the list and seeing what Congress is trying to do and working to keep the federal government in check and hopefully reduce it in size. So it's made progress, and they've had to update the website to keep up with the demand for the service. So that's very good news.
And you can learn how you can contact Congress by going to downsizedc.org. All right, when we come back, we're going to be talking about terrorism. We've got a watch list. It's growing. Over 1 million names on it now. We'll tell you the story when we come back.
Am I on? Am I on?
You're on.
Do I talk now? Do I talk now? I'm Gardner Goldsmith,
I
and
think she's up by where they're doing the show.
you're watching Free Minds TV. Open your mind, baby. Tell others to do the same.
And welcome back to Free Minds TV, where we challenge you, the listener, to think outside the box. With you today is Toby.
And Nick.
All right. We've been tracking this little terror watch system that the government's been going on for a while now, keeping us safe, making sure that every American who has a dissenting opinion, not every American, but people who have a dissenting opinion, and they might be terrorists, got to put them on a list, got to make this list, stop them when they go on airplanes, search them a little extra. Make their lives a little bit tougher. Now, this list has been growing very rapidly at the rate of 20,000 names by the government's own admission per month. Now, with the numbers that high, how many of these names are actually being investigated to see if these people really should be on a terror watch list? And what do you do with the terror watch list that just has eclipsed 1 million names? 1 million names. With that many people on the terrorist watch list, suspected terrorists, shouldn't we just put the whole population on the list? Because then we'd all be safe, right? If we're all on the list of possible terror suspects, which I guess if you're talking about a population where a terrorist is just a citizen who's going to be going and blowing something up or causing some mayhem somewhere, I guess everyone could be a suspect. So wouldn't it make sense to just put everyone on the list and save the government the trouble of having this bureaucracy actually have to go and choose out names? Because, I know this list is making me feel safer with 1 million. I can't wait for 5 years when we have another 1 million. What if we just put everyone on the list right now and did away with this whole freedom concept altogether? Is it a good idea, Nick?
Well, one investigative reporter from CNN, Drew Griffin, didn't think so. And he did an investigative series about the TSA and the terror watch list because it had just basically, by the ACLU's count, crossed the 1 million person threshold. Well, he ended up on the terror watch list, at least as well as he can tell. The TSA is denying that they put him on the list, and they're denying that they would do that simply because he investigated them. But shortly after some of the series aired, he started getting stopped at airports and having to go through secondary screening. According to the airlines, he was being made to do it because the TSA had put him on a list. They didn't say which list, but the TSA did give the airlines a list, and they were just doing what they were told. So it seems like not only did the TSA put this reporter on the list simply for doing a series about what the TSA is and what the terror watch list is, they're also lying about it when it's pretty obvious that they're guilty of doing this. And they don't like to say who's on the terror watch list. You really have to dig around and find out who's on there. I believe Senator Ted Kennedy ended up on the terror watch list at one point, and I don't think he's the only politician who's ended up there.
No, and I mean, if someone has a similar name to someone else who is on the list, or the same name, there's some common names on the list, like a John Smith might be on the list, and there's probably a few John Smiths out there. So this 1 million number is really affecting more than 1 million people, because it would only be affecting 1 million people if all those people had different names. But a lot of them share names. So this 1 million terror watch list is, it's impossible really to tell how big it is because we don't know which names are on it. We don't know how many people it's actually affecting. It should also be noticed that there's no meaningful way to get your name off the list. If you are on it, there's no process of which you can go and appeal it, find out why you're on it, get your name off it, so you don't have to be harassed when you go to the airport, so that you don't have to be suspected of doing something wrong when you've actually done nothing at all. So even if we are going to have a list, which I don't know, I guess the government just loves lists. I'm not a fan of lists. But if there was a list, wouldn't it make sense to make a meaningful list? Because this list doesn't do crap. It just provides jobs for useless government bureaucrats to push beans around, make a list, and now we're safer. Do you think we'll get on this list by the end of tonight's show? If we're not already
I don't
on
know. I did fly a couple months back, and I didn't get any special searches, so I don't think I'm on there yet. We'll see how things go.
Well, with the government talking about those special electronic bracelets we covered on last week's show, talking about putting those on you that track your whereabouts, and also potentially could have the power to zap you a little bit if you get out of line, give you a shock, put you out for a few seconds. With the inclusion of possibilities like that, if you have to go flying, I don't know how much I want to go.
Yeah, I'm not really looking forward to flying anymore at this point. And if I can avoid it, I will.
I like to avoid flying already because I don't like going to the airport for 5 hours to go on a 2-hour flight. You have to get there hours ahead of time, wait in special lines. They tell you that you're supposed to be there hours ahead of time. Sometimes you just go through the line immediately, and then you're just on the other side waiting all day. I mean, I'd rather just get in a car and drive, but I don't know. The fiancé is partial to flying.
Well, I mean, that's
naturally
understandable then.
But if these bracelets come on, I don't think I'm going to be putting on a special bracelet that can shock me.
I think that would probably be a turning point for a lot of people as to whether they choose to fly or not. Because going through a search is one thing, but then having to wear a tracking device that could also shock you, that's another. And I know now the Department of Homeland Security is trying to downplay the level of interest that they have in those shock collars / tracking collars. But I think maybe it wasn't received as well as they had hoped.
Right. We were talking about that on the bonus edition of Free Minds Radio. You can learn about that at freemindstv.com. But we were talking about how the feds came out and said, well, we're not so interested in the shocking aspect, at least right now. But we do like the idea of putting this tracking bracelets on felons when they come out of jail. That wouldn't be such a bad idea. So when we were talking about this story last week, we were saying, well, the next step after putting on the airline passengers would just to put it on maybe felons or sex offenders or someone along those people who we got to track, keep America safe. So, freedom's slipping away one piece of technology at a time. Technology can be good, but when it's put in the hands of the government, oftentimes it is used to strip you of your rights.
Yeah, unfortunately, and it's advancing at a pace now where the government has the ability to monitor and track everybody and exert an amount of control that they couldn't before. I mean, even if you look at totalitarian regimes like Hitler's Germany or Soviet Russia, they were limited in how much they could know about a given person at a given time unless they were of high interest. But now they can track pretty much everybody in one way or another, and they can exert a lot more control. So the danger is if you have a government slip into the role of a totalitarian state, there's really not a whole lot of a chance that you're going to be able to escape or organize some kind of effective resistance, and that's where it's really dangerous.
Right. We were also there. The government is stepping up efforts to disallow people from leaving the government if they so seem fit. A law recently came out that shows that if you're trying to leave the government and no longer be a part of America, you're going to be taxed very heavily. So, I mean, there's a huge tax. Take away your wealth if you want to give up your citizenship as an American. So there's all sorts of ways that the government is out there tracking your whereabouts and seeing what they can do to keep you here in the land of the free. When we come back, we are going to be talking about some emails. Last week we were talking about the Libertarian Party, Bob Barr, and possible write-in candidates. We're going to get to your emails when we come back. Stay tuned.
I'm Sam with OTN, and you're watching Free Minds TV, one of the few media sources that asks you to think for yourself.
And welcome back to Free Minds TV, where we challenge you, the viewer, to think outside the box. As always, this is Toby.
And Nick.
All right, last week we were talking about presidential elections. Talking about the upcoming race for president. We got a couple real nice choices this time around. We've got the Republicans, we've got the Democrats. You know, when I was looking at my list of choices here, weighing the pros and cons of both, I didn't really see much choice between government or government. I didn't really see much choice to vote for. And last week I said that I was thinking about writing someone in because I'm not so happy with some of the third parties. There are some very marginal third parties out there. There's the Green Party, of course. There's the Communist Party. Are they still up and running?
I think they shut down.
Oh, did they? Well, there's the Constitutional Party. There's also the Libertarian Party, which is probably that has the most hope of all third parties. But last week we were talking about how their candidate, Bob Barr, he's a pretty big government sort of guy, at least he used to be, has his name on a lot of anti-freedom type legislation. I'm not a huge fan of him. On Free Minds Radio, we went through and listed all the different reasons he's a bad man. And it would take a lot of convincing to get my vote for him, someone who has their name on anti-freedom legislation. I don't know if I could vote for him. And I said that I would probably rather write in Ron Paul or Mickey Mouse or something, and asked you guys what you thought about it. And we got one email that piqued my interest a little bit.
Yeah, this from Anthony. Anthony writes, "Don't forget that Ronald Reagan started out as a Democrat and became one of the most popular Republican presidents in history. Expecting a perfect candidate is wishful thinking. Although Barr is not perfect, he's a hell of a lot better than Mick Obama. Write-ins are stupid. Why even bother if you're going to cast a vote that will count for nothing?"
Now let's stop right there. Does Bob Barr stand a chance?
No. Of winning? No.
Does anyone think Bob Barr stands a chance?
Maybe Anthony, but
no. Does Anthony really think that Bob Barr stands a chance?
No, he's not going to win.
So why is it better to vote for him versus writing in Ron Paul or Mickey Mouse? Either one's you're casting a vote not for one of the two parties. That's the point, right?
It's a pretty good question. Yeah, you're trying to send a message with your vote, and I think either writing in Ron Paul or doing something similar sends the same message as voting for a libertarian.
Because you've got the people who voted for McCain, you've got the people who voted for Obama, and then you've got other.
Right.
Yellow.
I can see the case.
Red, blue, and yellow.
I can see the case saying that if you vote for the Libertarian, it might send the message that the Libertarian Party enjoys a lot of support out there.
Okay.
So I'll go with that.
That point. Let's continue.
But at least Bob Barr will be on the ballot in every state. Okay? The Libertarian Party is the only choice if you want a chance at denying McCain or Obama in 2008.
We don't have a chance. I'm sorry. I would love it if the Libertarian Party had a chance. But when have they gotten over 10% of the vote?
They haven't. I mean, Bob Barr is his best state in recent polls with Zogby has him at 10% in New Hampshire.
And that's
his
outstanding.
Best state. Right.
They would be very, very well off if they got 10%.
Maybe he can pull off 15. If he pulls off 20, I'll eat my shoe. But he might get into a debate, and that would be surprising. He's not going to win the presidency. It seems you guys need to free your minds a little, too. I enjoyed your latest episode, except where you were suggesting people think about write-ins. It's completely non-productive. If you want to protest, do it like the viewers won't be aware. He says do it like the librarian we reported on. She was arrested for protesting at a McCain rally. That is an effective form of protest. But if we're talking about voting, let's keep it to voting. There's no reason you can't do both. I should also add this. Were either of you at the Libertarian Convention? Well, no.
I wasn't.
I didn't want Bob Barr to win.
I don't even like politics all that much.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a couple $1,000s to fly to Denver, pay for a ticket, spend a couple days in a hotel, and vote for a nominee. Although I was hoping Mary Ruwart would win.
Anyone but Bob Barr.
Right.
I was hoping for anyone but Bob Barr. I don't like Bob Barr. I don't even like the name Bob Barr. Maybe it's because of Bob Barr.
Yeah, it could be because of who has the name.
Yeah.
If you did not support alternatives to Bob Barr, you have no reason to complain about that party's choice. Well, since I am a lifetime member of the party, well, I am a member of the party, I think I do have a reason to complain because Bob Barr, if you read what his policy positions are, he is not a libertarian. I agree Barr is not the ideal choice, but unless we start standing behind the efforts of a strong third party, it will always be only a two-party system that has actually evolved into a one-party system without any choice.
So now we can have a one-party system of the Republicans and Democrats and a second party, now the two-party system, of a watered, liquidy, disgusting libertarian party.
Yes.
Yay, we have the same.
He says, notwithstanding Barr's past record, don't totally ignore the platform of the Libertarian Party. Unfortunately, the party decided to gut their platform, I think back in 2004, and attempts to restore the platform didn't work out this time around. So basically what they've done is package themselves as kind of, sort of conservative, sort of libertarian. The platform of the party, as I knew it when I got involved with it, doesn't exist anymore.
What was that platform? What are you not supposed to be doing?
Well, you're not supposed to be intervening in the affairs of other sovereign nations, which Bob Barr doesn't state clearly. He actually thinks we should be involved intervening in Iran and South America. That doesn't sound like a libertarian position to me. I can see nominating someone who has one or two disagreements with the overall philosophy. But nominating somebody who's very inconsistent on the philosophy, I think, could do as much harm as good for the Libertarian Party. Even if Bob Barr gets 15%, if he confuses people about what the Libertarian Party is supposed to stand for, you've completely defeated the purpose. If you've sold out the party of principle, which is what it used to be called, and it just becomes a watered-down third party that can pull in a whopping 12% of the vote, maybe.
Possibly, if they're very lucky. All right, so basically, if you're confused on why we hate Bob Barr so much, you can go back and listen to some of the episodes of Free Minds Radio. They're at Free Minds TV or freemindsradio.com. But review those. There's some really good reasons we don't like Bob Barr. I also like to state that the LP is being buried. They're having a funeral at the Burning Porcupine this coming Sunday, so we might be there filming some of that as well while they're having their convention here in New Hampshire. So while I am a minarchist, I like the small government type people. The LP is kind of losing it for me a little bit.
Yeah.
If you have a different opinion, though, send it to us, fmtv@freemindstv.com.
And I did want to thank Anthony for writing in, even though we disagree with him, because it makes the show a lot more interesting.
Most
so
definitely.
if you disagree with us, and please write in, let us know, and maybe we'll read it on air.
It's been Toby here with you.
And Nick.
Join us at freemindstv.com for archives of the show, ways to help donate, and a whole lot more. And tune in to Free Minds Radio this Sunday from 12 to 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, freemindstv.com.